Good afternoon. I, Aisha Yunus, the moderator of this session, warmly welcome you all to the International Conference on AI and Future of English Pedagogical Innovations and Literary Transformation in Global Context at Lahore Garrison University. We are grateful that you have taken out the time from your busy schedules, and I hope you find this session very productive and engaging. Ladies and gentlemen, the session chair of this session is Dr. Tariq Usman. Sir, we are honored to have you amongst us.
The conference recording has started.
Ladies and gentlemen, the timing for this session is from 2:30 to 4 p.m. We have 17 presenters, so each presenter will have 5 minutes to sum up his or her presentation. There will be a question-answer session at the end of presentations. At the end of presentation, our esteemed session chair will sum up this session with his or her commendable remarks. Moreover, it is required to please sum up your presentation within the given time. Next topic.
I would like to call the first presenter of the session, Ms. Ume Laila Naqvi. She is a PhD in English linguistics, along with the fact that she is a faculty member of University of Sialkot. She will be speaking on the topic Eco-Anxiety and Sustainability Narratives, a thematic analysis of women's Instagram comments on climate-related posts.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Ume Laila Naqvi, and right now I am serving as a lecturer at University of Sialkot. Along with that, I am a PhD scholar over Minhaj University, Lahore. It's really my immense pleasure that I am here to present on the very important topic that is the talk of the town nowadays, about eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety, that is when I came through about the flyer of this conference, and there were about different green mysticism and eco-criticism and something like that. I thought that this is the quite suitable topic that we should have to do some work on it, and as a researcher, first of all, that was a little bit difficult for me to manage the things like which area I should have to select and what should I have to select. So climate change, that is basically, you know, that increasingly not only an environmental concern, but we can say that is also a very psychological and social issue. In present years, being a female, for me as well, whenever I go through the different posts of Instagram, on Instagram there are the nature scenarios, we can say different reels that is being basically indicating about the greenery, nature, and being a female, that is my personal a little bit experience also included in it, that being a female, I always felt bit nostalgic whenever I saw some videos of northern areas or somewhere like that is connected to nature. So I took the three major areas, that is about Islamabad, Margila Hills and Murray. And I took around about 50 posts, 50 comments of different females on Instagram. The identity is totally anonymized, and the most important thing, this topic basically indicated about how the females basically, while they were commenting under the specific post, they were somewhere like a bit nostalgic, we can say one under the picture said, I really miss these days. Some said such a peaceful memories, and one said that obsessed with nature. So we will go into the detail further. But right now, if we are going to see the objectives of the research, like In the major objectives, I tried as a researcher to identify the key themes, likewise sustainability narratives, like present in these comments, and to analyze the emotional patterns such as nostalgia, fear, hope, and concern related to the environmental change as well. And definitely, if the nature is little bit, you can say, devastated or destructive, then the mood of the female, like if someone is, like the females are also sitting here and like I am also the female, that is not a gender-based something, but that is something about the 4 basic major themes that are the mathematic concern in my topic: fear, hope, and nostalgia, and the nature by itself and anxiety that has been basically attached with it. And the third objective, to examine how Instagram functions as a platform from environmental discourse among women, and to understand the role of gender in shaping digital climate. I have definitely around about took 20 to 25 important literature reviews, and that has been totally focused on the social behaviors, digital communication, and definitely, most importantly, mostly scholarships are also indicated about the specific word about the sustainability. And on the other side, environmental degradation. So, according to the research, this is the very important topic. But on the other side, the theory, the methodology which I have took, that is really very interesting. And I have round about took 21 comments from different posts, and I consider the ethical consideration in this research. Ethical consideration, under the umbrella of ethical consideration, I anonymized, I took those comments which are basically available, open, free access for the public profiles, not the data breaching or something like that, that is personal or something like that. I as a researcher totally consider the ethics while doing this research, because we are having to publicize the comments and the data of different females, and definitely when someone is going to comment under some Instagram post or social media post, or we can say like on WhatsApp, even on WhatsApp status, if someone is posting a poetry or lyrics, someone is posting, and under the comment, I comment sometime, like maybe I felt nostalgic about that specific point. So the research methodology, the selected posts are related to only the climate change and environmental issues, particularly those depicting natural landscapes such as Murray, Margilla Hills and Islamabad green spaces. And here the important point is that I am going to quote that I went to Islamabad last week for the conference at Barrier University. I went personally to experience about how nature is basically affecting me as well as a female. I went over trail 3 and 5 by myself, I hiking over there, and literally, honestly, I will definitely refrain some my personal experience as a researcher will put in this article before publication. But I personally experienced that, yes, nature is basically prevailing everywhere, no doubt about it, but the nature is having a very deep in the dark effect on the moods as well. And sometimes you felt loneliness, and sometimes you feel, sometimes we can say the strength in the nature as well, like the fear and the confidence, and I didn't use the word happiness over there, but the peace, sign of peace is also all over in the nature. These are the basically images and the different comments which I have been selected as a researcher all over the 50 comments overall, and these are the posts, and these all are the public open access post, and I as a researcher considered about the ethical considerations. So, if I'm going to specifically talk about my findings, and my findings is about, yes, the thematic analysis definitely demonstrate about the women's landscape. Instagram comments are deeply emotional and reflective and socially meaningful, and eco-anxiety is present both explicitly and implicitly as well. Ecofeminism provides a critical lens for understanding with these expressions, and particularly rich among the certain specific eras. And here are some references and the direct links of the researches. If someone needed, they can take from the management these slides if someone needed about it. These are the direct links, and in this basically study, the followed pattern, recommendations and the suggestions. But the most important thing is that using a qualitative thematic analysis, the themes under these expressions have been basically checked out, are the analysis approach, and the study examined how emotional, social and environmental meanings are basically concluding in digital spaces. So this is all from my side about this is the topic that is the need of an hour now about under the umbrella of sustainability and the eco-anxiety as well, and hope so this will be helpful for the future researchers as well. And any question are most welcome, any suggestions, everything is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to call the second presenter of the session, Mariam. Her title of research is English Language Teaching, Bloom Taxonomy, Based Analysis of Cognitive Distribution Across Students, Learning Outcomes and Exercises in Sindh Board's Grade 11th English Textbook.
Assalamualaikum everyone. This is Dua Mughal, and along with my co-researcher Maria Magro, we are bachelor students from the Begum Nusrat Bhutto Women University, Sakhar, Sindh. So today we are going to present our research, which is Bloom's taxonomy-based analysis of cognitive distribution across student learning outcomes and exercises in Sindh Board Grade 11 English textbook. So first of all, start with this introduction. In the modern education system, critical thinking and cognitive development are considered essential skills for student development or for student skills. Since textbooks are the major source of learning in Pakistan education system, so Pakistan recent education systems has reformed its educational system aimed to align textbook according to the 21st century demands. As a result, after several decades, Sindh Board revised its textbooks, and we are going to target the Sindh Board English Language Grade 11 Sindh Board textbook. So, however, the significant research gap still exists. No specific study has been on Sindh Board English textbook. So this study follows the interpretivist paradigm and uses a mixed method approach to analyze cognitive levels in the grade 11 English textbook. Bowes' 2009 document analysis was used as the analytical framework to examine student learning outcomes and exercises, which are already organized by skills, reading and writing, grammar, and in communication in textbooks. Bloom's taxonomy is used as an analytical framework to identify lots and hordes. Qualitative analysis involves a detailed interpretation of SLOs and exercises to categorize them according to Bloom's cognitive levels. Further, the quantitative analysis involves calculating and comparing the SLOs and exercises across different cognitive levels.
Hello. Hello everyone. So here I am, Mariam. And since we are running short on time, so we have to cut most of the parts. And we are moving towards the findings of this research paper. So firstly, I would like to tell that we have divided the findings into two sections. The first section actually analyzes the SLOs or the student learning outcomes of the textbook, whereas the second part analyzes the exercises that were included in these textbooks. So when we are looking at the SLOs, we can easily find that the reading SLOs fall under every level of Bloom's taxonomy. However, it is also visible that mostly the intended outcomes target understand level, the comprehension level. This means that the intended curriculum demands comprehension of the learned knowledge. Then we are moving towards the writing SLOs. So as we can see in writing SLOs, most of the SLOs fall under the create level, which shows that students were asked to produce high level of thinking. However, we can also see that there was no basic scaffolding provided, as no SLOs fall under remember, understand, or any category of the lower order thinking skills. Okay, now again, as we know that oral communication demands interaction, which is also evident that most of the SLOs fall under apply and create categories. Students were asked to produce the information. Students were asked to apply the information. Similarly, the grammar SLOs demanded application of learned knowledge. The application of learned knowledge means that they were supposed to use the rules and the regulations of the grammar. So now we will be looking at the exercises. For exercises, we know that most of the textbook have the basic exercises of MCQs, text, paragraphs, and then paragraph writing and letter writing, and then we are having the question answer session. So when we are looking at the reading exercises distribution, as I've already told that the SLOs demanded the cognitive progression of all levels. However, in reading exercises, it was seen that it only falls under the remember and the understand category. Hence, this was visible that the SLOs did not attain the levels and the objectives that were decided for the textbook. Similarly, for writing, we can see most of the exercises fall under create category. However, again, no basic scaffolding is provided. This may trigger in production of knowledge. Student may be able to produce knowledge, but that knowledge will be conventional. They will not be able to understand the underlying biases. They will not be able to question the biases existing in that knowledge. Again, for oral communication SLOs, the analysis revealed that it falls under foundation level and supports communicative competence. However, it does not increases the practical uses of language. How? Because students can be able to communicate easily, but they cannot argument effectively because they are having zero exercises that increases their evaluate cognitive skill. And further, they can be able to use the language in real world. However, these exercises fail to develop and argue and communicate their ideas independently. For grammar exercises, again, this demand application of the learned knowledge. Students were asked to apply the rules that they have learned. However, this produces retrieval of knowledge. Students are supposed to apply the knowledge effectively. However, this limits the conceptual learning of the rules. So this is all about our study. These are the references, and if you're having any questions, we would love to hear you. And if you are having any suggestions, we would also love to hear you. Thank you.
I would like to invite the second presenter of the session, Zaid Rukhsar, who will speak on the topic Redefining Fluency, Generative AI as a Socio-Cognitive Scaffold in L2 Acquisition.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Zaid Rukhsar from University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, from Department of English Literature and Linguistics. Topic of my research is redefining fluency, but the main point of redefining the fluency is through 3 steps: generative AI, socio-cognitive scaffold, and the use of L2 acquisition. Okay, starting the introduction, we will use automation, AI automation. We have seen that the AI is already automated, that the already provided data is passive, and we mostly can't change it. But in this study, we will use large language models and then alternate them through actively changing the AI models, and then asking them to conclude in a socio-cognitive environment with students to help them get over their anxiety and other factors that will stop them from interacting with people. Okay, talking about research objectives, we will go from socio-cognitive scaffold, but the main and the first factor that we will talk about is the AI. Okay, AI is our first socio-cognitive person that we will interact. Then we will use that knowledge and that interaction experience and interact with people in the real life. That is how the socio-cognitive scaffold is the interaction, the mixture and a collaboration of all the data that we have concluded through our research. Okay, then we will talk about the foreign language anxiety. L2 is already a foreign language, though we will call it L2. But this anxiety is the way we can get over this anxiety is through interacting with the people who can speak this language or through the tools which will not judge us. Then we will skip to the research methodologies. The major methodology that we have used is convergent, parallel, mixed method. Mixed method designs conclude the qualitative analysis and the quantitative analysis both. The environment that we have the environment in which we have considered this study is that we will make a conversation scenario and mirror life imaging. Like we will ask a student to interact with the AI through some specific reasons. He will interact with AI and then use that knowledge in the real life. Quantitative assessment will include the pre and post interaction proficiency, like we will see at which level their knowledge lies before interacting with AI, and then we will see how they have perceived a few bits of knowledge after interacting with AI tools. Then we will talk about qualitative inquiry. Qualitative inquiry mainly considers that how better a person can interact and at what level that data the person is perceiving. Then I will skip to the conclusions. Strategic integration. We have used the major tool Gen AI or Gemini. Gen AI serves as a sophisticated scaffold that complements rather than replaces the human instructor. Okay, at this point we will talk that AI is not a replacement for the teachers, but it is a helper for the teachers. The way a person can interact with AI tools with the help of his peers, and then he will use that knowledge in the real life interaction, and he can help perceive a better environment in the classroom. Talking about the future outlook, AI-mediated learning represents a critical evolution in achieving authentic fluency. Okay, in this process, we will talk about the 21st century, the Gen AI. We will talk about the Gen generation, that the way they can interact and learn the AI tools is better than those that are from 90s or our teachers. These are the references that I have used in my research. The foremost and the major reference that I have used is Vygotsky's, his development of higher psychological process. And the last that I have major used is Krashen. Krashen put for the rule of removal of anxiety in communication, and this is the major point in our research. Thank you for your cooperation. You can ask questions. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite the fourth presenter of the session, Rubina Shaheen, who will speak on the topic, the role of AI in developing academic writing skills among college students. Please welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rubina and I'm working as a professor in Pias University, and I am going to talk about AI from the perspective of a teacher. So the first thing would be it is a descriptive research primarily taken from the research articles, and AI can support teachers in their writing classes on these areas. These are the areas when it comes to idea generation, rephrasing, feedback, student engagement, and material generation. I think no teacher should ignore the cognitive process of thinking. AI can help teachers when they involve their students into analytical, step-by-step process of thinking. And of course, language enhancement, a teacher's role needs to be defined, and that is from error corrector to facilitator into critical thinking. A teacher cannot give individual attention to students when there are 40 students, so AI can help teachers as well as students when it comes to giving feedback. Students' engagement. Well, ladies and gentlemen and dear students, if I ask you, I put these two poems to AI, can you recognize the two poems? Can you name it? Daffodils? Stopping by words. Okay, so yes, we can enhance our classes, we can engage our students by using this, especially when we are teaching descriptive writing and we are talking about certain descriptions which are vague. Yes, material generation. If I have to give text to my students, it should be culturally relevant. And it should not be about John talking to Roberts. So AI helps me there. Very recently, I asked ChatGPT to write a text for me which should be on self-discipline and which should have the example of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So AI can help me there. Yes, challenges are there. Is AI going to replace teachers? No. But the time is changing. Our youth is smarter. They are technologically more proficient, more savvy. A teacher needs to be smarter too. AI technologies are evolving. The teachers need to evolve too. And yes, it should be the balanced integration of AI in writing pedagogy. Thank you. Is there any question? Okay.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite the fifth presenter of the session, Arooj Hassan, who will speak on the topic Women's Education Challenges and Solutions, Hurdle Faced by Women in Higher Educational Institutions in Sindh, Punjab, Pakistan.
First of all, Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Rooj Hassan, an undergraduate student of BS English TESOL from Department of Linguistics and Social Sciences. The research topic that I will discuss that is about women's education challenges and solutions. Hurdles faced by women in higher educational institutions in Sindh, Pakistan. So I'll move forward to introduction. Education plays a significant role in social, economic, and national development. Women's education contributes to empowerment and self-confidence. When a woman gets education, then women being empowered and she will be self-confident. Means she can be a part of this society, equal part of this society. Means she will get the equal status in society, and she will do financial decision making. And the second one is social awareness and economic independence. Means when women get education, they can be financially more strong and they have more access to get any job. Social awareness and participation. Means when a woman gets education, they will be more aware about the things. Means they can improve their family health, they can be more powerful in many things, and they can be a part of in leadership programs. According to UNESCO, gender equality in education remains a major challenge in developing countries, particularly in South Asia. Despite constitutional rights and educational reforms, women in Pakistan to face barriers in higher education. The major challenges that women are facing that are gender discrimination. Means women are not being equally treated in our society. Especially this research is about Sindh. And there are patriarchal social structures. Means women are not given equal status as compared to men. Limited leadership opportunities. Means they have restrictions to get any job and they are not being allowed as compared to men. Women in rural areas of Sindh experience additional challenges such as poverty, early marriages, transportation and mobility issues. The research methodology that I have selected, that is quantitative research. I have selected, there were total 150 participants, 100 female students and 50 were teachers. And I have selected 3 major universities from Sindh for the responses. The Begum Nusrat Bhutto Women University, Sakkar, IBA Sakkar University and Shah Abdul Latif University. The data collection was collected through structured questionnaire, 5-point Likert scale, strongly agree and disagree. Means its ranking was from strongly agree to strongly disagree. The findings that was research that was that women in Sindh are still facing the many issues in their education. Means they are not being equally treated as compared to men. There are so many societal patriarchal structures that are limiting their education. Means they are not giving their daughters full confidence to be a part of this society. Because when a woman gets education, it will be not beneficial for their only for themselves, but it can be beneficial for the whole society, for the progress of whole society. That's it. Any question? Yes. Yes. Yes, the limitation of my research was that I have selected only 3 universities because I was particularly doing research on the Sindh. Yes. Sorry, didn't got the point. Yes. Because in Sindh there is a patriarchal societal structure more. Because in Sindh there are so many Vadera system, we can say, and they don't allow their daughters for their respect. They thinks that when women go out from the home, that it will be not good for them, people will see them, and that will be disrespectful for them. That's why I specifically research on the Sindh. Otherwise, it can be on global level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uruj Hassan. The sixth presenter of the session is Taiba Safdar, who will speak on the topic of AI-powered language learning, a systematic review of listening and speaking development in EFL context. Please welcome.
I would like to invite the seventh presenter of the session, Manal Fatma, who will speak on the topic Navigating Generative AI in Assessments, Institutional Responses for the Teacher Education College in Pakistan.
Okay, the next presenter is Dr. Sabahat Parveen. Is she here? Okay. The topic is Beyond the Chatbot, Navigating Silence and Culture and AI Ethics in Higher Education English Teaching.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am the second author of this paper, so I am presenting instead of Dr. Sabahat. Starting with the introduction, we will start with Beyond the Chatbot, Navigating the Silence Culture and AI Ethics in Higher Education English Teaching. First of all, we will talk about the silence culture. Silence culture is how a student will keep in common interaction in classroom. The student, instead of being judged, they will conclude the discussion to themselves, or they will not speak in their classrooms. And that is specifically the silence culture. And how we will use the AI? We will make the students engage with the AI to talk, to learn something, and then they will use that experience in the real life using honesty, pragmatism, paradox. And how will that work? We will see the students how they use the AI tools fairly without cheating, and then use that context in their real life. We will fall toward the research objectives. The objective of this research was mainly the socio-cognitive scaffold in L2 learning. Socio-cognitive scaffold will lie at how the students will interact the AI and then use that knowledge in their real life, and how they will not rationalize the data toward themselves, but also use that data in their real context. Then we will fall toward the theoretical framework. I use the socio-cognitive scaffolding and the communication competence, L2 acquisition theory. I use these three. The socio-cognitive scaffold will show us how using the AI tool can temporarily help us to allow the learners to achieve the higher levels of competence. And then communicative competence are basically the same as those the high level competence, that they will learn how they can interact in a social context. The research methodology I have used is the mixed method approach, combining both the qualitative and the quantitative data. The main people that I have used this data was from the students of higher education ELD setting, basically from my own university. The methodology will also conclude the feedback mechanism, in which I have analyzed the students' tone before and after the interaction with AI. I have checked their tone, politeness, situational appropriateness that they have achieved through interacting with AI. In conclusion, we can see the redefining fluency. Redefining is basically how the students interact with AI, then they use that knowledge, and then they use that knowledge in the real life to fluent their, get over their anxiety. But these are not my slides. Ji? Yes. Anybody? Any questions? Ji? Yes.
Very much useful for the students
Yes.
in building up the arguments or taking part in the conversations in the class.
Yes.
Right. But there's this point that is very intriguing at the same time, that AI chatbots have a particular type of pattern to it.
Yes.
Like the answers are
Yes.
always
Each of them
on
has
the-
a separate pattern.
Yeah. So they use
That is why
adjectives.
you have to learn how to write a prompt.
Yeah. So they have the patterns, like they use a lot of adjectives.
Yes.
And the knowledge is somehow on the surface level.
That the way they use the passive voices and we talk in active voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you really think that it can help a student to achieve that certain goal of building up that confidence?
Well, that depends on the interaction of the student with that AI tool. Like for example, if you use the Meta AI on WhatsApp, it will give you a precise knowledge about a topic, but it will not provide you a thorough summary of that topic. Whereas if you use a Gem AI that is on Google, it will provide you a thorough discussion about a topic, and you can interact in any way you want. In case you can write a good prompt.
That is a good solution to it.
Yes.
But my question is, how is it integrated, or is it an integrated part in your paper, or it's just the solution that you are giving it to me?
Well, the main purpose of my research was getting over the silence culture from among the students in higher education. As we can see, most of the students, even if they reach the 8th semester of their bachelor's, they mostly can't interact with other students, or they can't give a presentation in English language. That is basically the main purpose of this study. But this interaction with AI, you can learn a few things, like you can get over some synonyms about a word. The way Mr. Zaidi explained earlier, that the tool can explain a word in a different ways that you can understand, and you can also ask it to summarize it or explain it in simpler terms that you can understand. So I think that AI is really good to get over the silence culture.
So basically, in simple words, your finding is that AI chatbots can help to
Yes.
overcome this problem,
Yes.
this particular problem.
Yes. Depending on your interaction and your capability, and also if you want or you not.
So are there any limitation to it?
Obviously, there are limitations, because you can't interact an AI bot just like you can interact with a normal human. Because a normal person can ask you a question, can give you some suggestions, recommendations, but whereas the AI tool will always give you a recommendation and answer, but it will not ask you a question in response.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next presenter of the session is Amara Mariam, who will speak on the topic Improving English Pronunciation with AI Speech Recognition Technology.
She is not here. Next. The next presenter is Tharia Mazhar Bhatt, who will speak on the topic AI-powered conversation for autonomous IELTS speaking practice in less resourced context, a quasi-experimental study.
Hello everybody, I'm Saria, an MPhil scholar from University of Education, Lower Mile campus, and I'm an IELTS instructor as well, and a co-instructor in Information Technology University. Excuse me, this was not the presentation that I sent. Recently I sent the email. ये जो है ये तो बहुत पुरानी थी, like 25 दिन पहले मैंने भेजी. I have to go through. Okay, fine, कोई मसला नहीं है. Okay. In recent years, pursuing higher education in abroad has become an increasingly prominent goal for many of the students. However, in Pakistan, this prominent goal has become really daunting. And this spiffy journey commences with qualifying international exams like IELTS. But in Pakistan, unfortunately, if we consider the underprivileged IELTS aspirants, they are not able to go through with it. Okay. They are not able to do it. Why? Because of the three main reasons. And the first is financial constraints. The second is technological constraints because of the digital illiteracy. And the third one is speaking outdated practices. So in order to overcome all these challenges or barriers, we decided to conduct a literature review and to meet the UNESCO's global call for inclusive and equitable incorporation of artificial intelligence in education. When we go through the literature review, we came to know that unfortunately, only a few educators and researchers have actually addressed this issue. So we made up our mind to have the responsibility to address this challenge. Recognizing all these gaps, we decided to investigate the influence of artificial intelligence in vocabulary and the fluency development of underprivileged IELTS aspirants. For this, a quasi-experimental design was used. There were 60 underprivileged IELTS aspirants in my study, and all those were divided equally into two groups, experimental group and control group. As far as experimental group, it was exposed to artificial intelligence-based spoken English practices, while on the other hand, the control group was exposed to the traditional or conventional AI, non-AI based spoken English practices. And after that, when we expose the experimental group for 3 months with the practices of AI, as far as the findings are concerned, we came to know that both groups shows the drastical improvement. As far as experimental group, the fluency, the mean fluency was improved from 5.01 to 5.90. While on the other hand, the control group, the mean fluency and vocabulary dropped drastically. But there is the difference, the nature of practice. If we talk about experimental group, the acquisition of vocabulary was internalized. They were able to actually recall the word choices and with the contextually precise things. While on the other hand, the control group, they were not able to immediately call the words. That was the difference. So in conclusion, considering the results of both of the groups, we came to know that AI can be taken as a supplementary tool, but not as the only tool to be depended on. So if we take the help from AI strategically, then we will be able, precisely the underprivileged IELTS aspirants will be able to improve their language learning opportunities. And as said by Dr. Shafqat Saidi earlier in Iqbal Hall, you should plan for your life. You should take the responsibility of your life. Before that, the AI is going to make a plan for you and you will end up failing drastically. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The next presenter of the session is Mohammad Naimur Rahman, who will speak on exploring student perceptions of English only versus translanguaging based instructions.
The next presenter of the session is Rafia Dharejo, who will speak on the teaching attitude toward Google Classroom and English language teaching.
The next presenter of the session is Javed Toor, who will
Assalamu alaikum. I am Rafia Darejo from Begum Nusrat Bhutto Women University, Sakhar, Sindh. I am here to present my research title. The title is Teachers' Attitude Towards Google Classroom in English Language Teaching. Introduction. Technology has changed modern education. Google Classroom is widely used in English language teaching. The most important thing is that teachers now use Google Classroom for effective learning, and mostly teachers have positive attitudes about Google Classroom because in COVID-19 teachers used Google Classroom. Research methodology. The methodology I have selected for my research is semi-structured, means the questionnaire and also the detailed explanation. The questionnaires are help to conduct interviews, means we have collect information in details, but the quantitative help us to collect data in numbers form. In this way, I can easily share data in both ways. Findings. Most teachers showed positive attitude towards Google Classroom. Teachers found it useful for assignment management. Means the teachers have also the positive attitude, means in one place they can easily share information quickly, and students also share their experiences about given topics and also collect data from it. In specific time periods, students can share their ideas in quick way. Conclusion. Google Classroom is effective English language tool. It supports communication and classroom management. Challenges include weak internet and lack of training. Means the Google Classroom is effective language tools. In these tools, the teacher also communicate with students and students share their ideas. Means the teachers and also students can share ideas and they can teachers increase their knowledge. Teachers develop and institutional support are necessary because when students submit their work before the teachers' instructions are also needed. It supports students to submit their work in effective time period. Policies can improve online learning experiences because when the students have knowledge about how to use Google Classroom and they can easily share their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next presenter of the session is Javed Toor, who will speak on exploring the digital identity of AI-assisted second language learners at university level in Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mohammad Javed Toor. I am a PhD scholar, Superior University. So, digital identity, I think it is a new thing, और इससे पहले शायद इस पे बात नहीं हुई है. That is why I have selected the topic. It is aftermath. ये अब बाद की बात है, हम digital competence लेते हैं, then बाद में हमें पता चलता है this is our digital identity. Machine हमें किस तरह understand करती है. So it is about digital identity. So, in today's rapidly transforming educational landscape, second language learning has moved far beyond the boundaries of traditional classrooms and the printed textbook. into dynamic digital environment shaped by artificial intelligence. Learner now engage with AI-powered tutors, intelligent chatbots, immersive multilingual platforms, and adaptive learning system that provide personalized instruction, instant feedback, and interactive communication experiences. Yet, this transformation is not only changing how languages are learned, it is also reshaping who learners become. As students interact across virtual spaces, practices pronunciation with AI avatars, refine writing through generative AI feedback, and participate in global online communities, they begin to construct evolving digital identities grounded in intercultural communication, online self-expression, and virtual social participation. Thus, the modern language learners now stand at the intersection of language, technology, and identity, where acquiring a second language also means developing the confidence, persistence of digital identity, and global competence necessary to thrive in an interconnected multilingual world. So to carry on this research, I have selected 4 objectives, and the 4 objectives are as under: to explore what kind of digital tools do the AI second language learner use for learning second language at university level. And the objective 2 was to find the persistence of digital identity of the AI second language learner when they return to an AI platform or log in second time. And the third one is to describe the importance of AI resuming previous activity or session from where the user left, to diagnose better platform in form of session continuity in the perspective of AI second learning user. So here I have reduced it in only 2 things I have included, though the chapter is literature is so long, so lengthy. I have only, the 2 of the references are here. Digital identity is composed of an entity's distinctive characteristics, and these qualities combine to create a record that confirms the entity's identification and sets it apart from other entities. The identity of a human user is a corporate network could include identifying data like their network, username, social security number, and social media profiles. And I have quoted Farhan 2022-237 define digital identity as a set of digital data representing an entity such as an individual, organization, device, or software in digital environment, including the internet and information system, and is also referred to as the computer representation. Research methodology, it was an exploratory qualitative research based on survey design. And theoretically, the researcher followed digital identity and human-computer interaction theory. Philosophically, the researcher followed phenomenological school of thought. Population for present study, your research was comprised all the second language learner who were using AI tools for second language learning in public and private university in Lahore of the academic session 2024 to 2026. Data were collected from 77 randomly selected second language learner via conducting interview. Semi-structured interview protocol or guides was developed to conduct face-to-face and online interview to meet the research objectives and answering the research questions. All participants voluntarily participated in this research. The collected data were then thematically analyzed by reading and listening to the recording, the data multiple times to gain an overall understanding of its content, patterns, and meaning, to develop an intimate and comprehensive awareness of the data set. And then last one, the codes were assigned. Okay, right. Oh, here is the finding. After an analysis, it was found that among the second language learner, 50% of respondents were English language learner, 23% were Chinese, 12% were German, 8% were Arabic, and 6% were Spanish. 3% were French, and 1% only for the other language learner. And it was explored that the learners of the second language were using a variety of digital AI-powered tools as chatbot, Duolingo, Google Translate, WhatsApp, AI-powered tool. Majority of the AI German and the English as second language learner were using chatbot tool for correction and practices of the language learning. Moreover, they said that most of them were using ChatGPT for vocabulary building and conversation practices and grammar correction and Quillbolt to simplify the sentences and rewriting. Among Spanish language learners, most of them were using Duolingo, Memrise, and Babbel as language learning apps to gamified learning and daily language practices. Majority of the Chinese language learners were using YouTube, Netflix as video-based learning tools. Moreover, most of them were using edX and Coursera for structured and formal language learning. So it was concluded at the end, that AI second language learner were using AI-powered tools as chatbots, Duolingo, Google Translate, chatbots, AI-powered tool for learning second language at university level. There are two references. 2024 found that second language learning users were using chatbot, Microsoft Bard, and other Google tools for second language learning. Here are two again references, and they said they stated that AI do not persist the digital identity of the user, but in hand research found that AI persists the digital identity of the user when they return to an online platform again, because according to most of the respondents, that AI recognize them by their digital identity awareness in the form of email ID, saving history, login account details, and backend storage data, privacy implications of the platform. So, any question regarding this? The reference. Thank you.
So the next presenter of the session is Ali Furqan.
The next presenter of the session is Faiza Liaquat, who will speak on Institutional Linguistic Deafness, a case study of generic English curriculum in Pakistani higher education.
Assalamu alaikum. Faiza Liaquat. Here, I'm a senior lecturer at University of Lahore, and I'm a PhD scholar at RIFA International. I have my teachers as my session chair today, and I'm so humbled to present in front of you. Thank you, Professor Dr. Hasnaat and Professor Dr. Shafqat Zaidi. Both of them are present here. Thank you so very much. So let me ask something, as we are all academic people present over here, and let me ask you something. When does the curriculum stop teaching and start shouting? This is the question that has been raised by my supervisor, PhD supervisor, Professor Dr. Shaban, RIFA International University. So we are actually talking about that how you're talking to your students and how they are learning and how they are responding to you. So that's the question, whether our curriculums are shouting. So that is the question behind my title, When the Curriculum Shouts, Institutional Linguistic Deafness in Pakistani Higher Education. So I am inviting you to listen differently here today, though I'm going to talk about a problem, but the question has already been given by Dr. Shafqat Zaidi and many of the key speakers, so I'm happy to be here. One curriculum, many discipline. Here is the practice that we normally have in higher education. Walk into any Pakistani university, you will find a computer science student and a philosophy student. Same English class, same textbooks, same 3 semester. So my argument here is not subtle, and I don't want it to be subtle, but this is the institutional linguistic deafness that I'm talking about. So what are the consequences when we are having the same curriculum and same pattern for all the discipline? You're having a class of computer sciences and you're having a class of social liberal, so school of liberal arts, and you're having a class of BS English. So how you're dealing with their English? So equal treatment becomes unequal outcome. So this is what I have discussed in this article. We have tried to discuss. So what are the objectives? And go to the research questions. There are 2 research questions that we have talked about. That how does the 2, where is the misalignment present over there? The second one is that what do students feel when they live through this mismatch of the curriculum and their demands and their subject demands? And 3 is where does the syllabus crack under the weight of reality? So notice I'm not asking if there is a problem, I'm asking how deep and where it hurts. 2 lenses of diagnosis has been used over there. One is Freire's banking model and the other one is English for specific purposes. So this is actually a comparative case study design. So I will not drown you into the methodology right now because I'm also running short of time. But I will say that we looked, Dr. Shaban and we tried to look across the discipline in different universities. And I listened to the students and tried to get to know through semi-structured interviews that how these fractures are present over there in our higher education system. So there were 3 key findings that I would like to share. There were many. There were actually 8 findings that we have got from the semi-structured interviews that we have conducted with the students. But at the same time, the first one is the syllabus as a site of erasure. We are not talking about the syllabus as their social reality. And the other one, that it is not unification, but that's the disappearance for the students. So it has become a linguistic deafness, though no one has talked about it, linguistic deafness right now. So maybe you are in the class and you're looking at the students and they are deaf because you are talking in English and something else. So the other one is a case study of resistance. This is our second finding, that it is also a resistance that I, as a teacher, resist is according to the Freire's model. I actually took initiative to change the course outline that has been implemented on us. And then we are trying to get to know the new ways of knowing. So this is evidence that they may work. So then we have also talked about the third key finding, and that's the technological dimension. We are all talking about the integration of AI over there. So we are still on textbooks. I am following Unlock 3 and teaching that in my classes and going with some activities going on. So then we are having still whiteboards, we are having still LMS quizzes like we are living in our 1700s or 1800s or 2015, or maybe we are in 2025. Though flipped learning has been adopted in my university, but still AI integration is something that is missing in it. So the summary of the argument is actually the 3 basic words: the pedagogical deafness that we have seen, the curricular deafness. It's not only our students who are deaf, but our management, the policymaker, we as teachers are deaf. And this is actually the linguistic deafness. If I am talking to a Sindhi students, talking to them in English, and they are not coming to the same background a Punjabi student come from. So how am I talking to them with a very flourish and very augmented and very decorative English accent? So this is actually what we meant by linguistic deafness. Thank you so very much. So when we refuse to listen, we erase the difference, and when it calls the uniformity rigor, if we really want it. Faisal Yaqut here. If you have any question, you may email me. Okay, I'm very active on my emails. We can talk on email. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The next presenter is Amber Sleem. The topic is the efficiency of AI-enabled mobile-assisted vocabulary learning applications in learning English vocabulary explicitly at college level.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that all of you are fine. Keeping the time-sensitive nature of the session, I'm going to talk directly about my research without having any sort of, a connection with the slides, so that you should understand and visualize what my research is all about. I'm not going to talk about AI integration directly, as many of you have been talking about, but I'm going to start from the very baseline. In Pakistan, when we just look at the population who are studying English as a second language, majority of the students, they belong to rural and peripheral areas of Pakistan. They are not acquainted digitally. They don't have parental support also. And then a lot of other things are there that the urban students, they enjoy, they don't enjoy. So my study basically is exam-driven study. And it talks about how exams, they can be a motivation for the students to develop their language skills apart from being a barrier to their learning. So I have selected an app that is synonyms and antonym apps using the theory of semantic fields that talks about how when we teach or learn vocabulary, having relations of synonyms and antonyms, they can be a fostering power to develop the skills of the students in vocabulary. And when the students, they are going to have their vocabulary enhanced and developed, how it's going to take a lot of contribution in their writing skills as well. So a sequential study was adopted in which 200 students were there, divided into two groups. One was the control and the other was experimental, starting from the very basic application that was having a very important feature of being used offline. The students, they could use it offline without any requirement of internet connectivity, and within only 1 month experimentation, there was a welcoming result, a development in the vocabulary and words bank of the students. So the study talks about how exams-driven studies, they can play a part in motivating and inspiring the student at the very basic level, and how the basic applications that can run without internet, they can influence the vocabulary and overall language skills of the students. Thank you so much. It was a good experience to tell you about all these things.
Thank you so much. The next presenter of the session is Hamid Ali Khan. He's not here.
Okay, now I would like to request the session chair of this session, Dr. Shafqat Zaidi, to share his views with us on all the presentations. Please welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to the organizers of the conference who have very well managed this conference, and all the presenters and keynote speakers, they have presented very well presentation. Now, regarding this session, what I have come to know that most of the students were presenting their research, whether device researchers or expert researchers, on use of AI or integration of AI in teaching, ELT, linguistic, TESOL, all these things. So all the presenters very efficiently presented their talk, their ideas, and they are very well prepared for their presentation. And the idea, I must say that the ideas are unique Every presenter presented unique ideas like vocabulary acquisition, like syllabus designing, and IELTS training, and different sort of ideas that you expressed during your presentation. And the methodology is very much prepared. The researcher knew what sort of methodology they need to apply. They are very much clear-headed about their selection of topic, formulation of research objective, research question and hypothesis, and above all, incorporating AI methodology and data analysis and finding. So overall, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I really appreciate your thought-provoking ideas and insightful ideas regarding the topic you have presented. And all the works are, I must say, they are very much interested, and I should suggest that you should present it in other conferences also, and you must get them published. These works are worth publishing. So keep trying, keep playing with data, keep inventing new ideas, keep searching new ideas related to the topic, and there is no end to research. So every moment you come across new idea, maybe today you have syllabus designing, and you would see the syllabus with the lens of AI. Maybe tomorrow generative AI can give you more interesting ideas. So all the time you must prepare your ideas and top up your ideas. So thank you very much. It was wonderful. Stay here, and I really enjoyed your presentation. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Now please welcome Dr. Hasnaat on the stage to share their views with us on all the presentations.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Shafkat has said almost everything on the presentations we have witnessed so far. I would only be commenting on a very lighter note that most of the presentations we had since the beginning of this session, from the very morning till today, till this time, they were mostly on the theoretical aspects of integrating AI into education or the other paradigms of knowledge and learning. What we must be doing as researchers, we must be moving ahead from the theoretical perspectives, theoretical alienations of the AI into education to the practical. We must be working on the practical sides of practical usage of AI into education, into IELTS, whatever our area, research areas are. So we would be looking forward towards the future implementations of AI into education, and especially in language learning. As far as the presentations are concerned, all the presenters, they presented very well. Their ideas, they were presented in a very beautiful way. Their ideas were nice. They must keep on working and polishing their ideas, and they must publish them as they get ready to be published. Thank you.
At the end, I would like to pay my gratitude to our Honorable Session Chair and to all the presenters for being a valuable part of this conference, Lahore Garrison University. Now, I would announce the names of the presenters who received their certificates. Sir, please come on the stage. Sir, Dr. Shafkat Zaidi and Dr. Hasnaat, please come on the stage. ये भी लेके आओ ना, हमने बोलना फिर बच्चे पढ़ाएंगे। ये लिखे ना मिस उम्मे लैला नकवी Miss Umme Laila Naqvi, please come on the stage. Miss Mariam Zaid Rukhsar.
Next, I would like to call Ms. Sarooj Hassan. Next, I would like to call Tayyeba Safdar. Next, I would like to call Manal Fatma. Next, I would like to call Dr. Sabahat Parveen. आपको और फिर थे ना
मदद कहाँ पे है वो बोलो हमारा मरियम आई है वो हमारा उसने तो कुछ भी नहीं बोला आई थिंक वही थी हमारा वो पीछे बोला था हाँ वो सारिया थी वाइट शर्ट वाली हमारा मरियम सारिया मजहर भट्ट प्लीज कम ऑन द स्टेज
Next, I would like to call Mr. Javed Toor on the stage.
Miss Rafia Dharejo. नहीं आएगी नहीं वो आ रही नहीं यही है राफिया दरेजो बुलाओ दोबारा किसको राफिया दरेजो मिस राफिया दरेजो नहीं मिस फायजा लियाकत देख कर आओ फायदा ले आकर भाग कर अंबर से ले बस खत्म हो गया